In this challenge review, we're going to get our player movement working. So the first thing I need to do is I need a handle onto the rigid body. So on my player game object here is our player script. I need this rigid body 2D component. So I'm going to create a handle for it and then assign that handle. So to do that, I'm basically going to say private rigid body 2D, and we're going to call this underscore rigid. And once we've done that, we go into start and we're going to assign underscore rigid equal to that component. I don't have to find the object and then get the component because we're already on the same game object. So I can simply type get component rigid body 2D. If you're not familiar with script communication, definitely check out the Ultimate Guide to Game Development with Unity, where we have 2 sections that cover script communication. So check this out. We have underscore rigid equals get component rigid body 2D. That's going to provide us with the rigid body 2D attached to the player. Once we have that, we need our horizontal input. So we're basically going to say float horizontal equals our input manager, and we want to get access horizontal. That's going to provide us with the left and right inputs being -1 for left and +1 for right. If you're not hitting any keys, or if you're not hitting the left and right arrow keys or the A and D key, it's going to return a 0. Once we have our user input, we then need to take our current velocity and assign it a new velocity. So to do that, we're going to basically say underscore rigid, and we're going to say dot velocity. And if I use my tooltip, it's going to tell me exactly what I can do. It says dot velocity get and set linear velocity of the rigid body. So because it's a property, I can get the velocity of my character and I can set it. So we're going to say rigid body dot velocity equals a new velocity. So a new vector 2, because that's what the documentation said. New vector 2. And then what am I putting for the x-axis? I'm going to put whatever my horizontal input is. So horizontal. And we'll go ahead and change this to horizontal input. And update this. Horizontal input. And for our y, we're not moving on the y-axis, so we could put 0. However, we don't want to reset it to 0 every time. We actually want to use whatever it is. For instance, if our player is falling, he will have a y velocity, and we don't want to reset that. So we're going to say underscore rigid dot velocity dot y to grab whatever the current velocity is at that state. Go ahead and save this. Hop back into Unity. Let your scripts compile. Let's go ahead and run this and see if it works. You'll see here that I can now move using the A and D keys. And my character, although the movement works, you can notice here that we're tripping over ourselves on the ground. So this is actually a really easy fix. All we have to do here is on our player, if you go into your rigid body 2D and drop down your constraints, make sure you stop playing. We want to just freeze the rotation on the Z axis. That's going to make it so that our player can't trip over ourselves and lock in and tip over. You can see here that now we can move left and right and everything works just fine. You'll notice here that if I hold down D and let go, we actually still slide a bit. So I would like a more smooth snapping movement. And to get that, we have to use input.getAccess raw. The reason why it's working this way currently is because it's using a float value between 0 and 1 if I hit the D key. So it goes to like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, all the way to 1, and then it gradually decreases. To avoid that gradual decrease or increase, we can modify our script to basically update our velocity or our horizontal input by using input.getAccess raw. This is going to say that it's only ever going to be -1, 0, or 1. There's no in between. So by saving this and running it again, we're going to have more firm controlled movement. And that's exactly what we want, because when we get into our animations, we don't want to be sliding around when we go from run to idle. And there you go. Now it's more responsive, and as soon as I lift up, my player stops. So that's how we get player movement. I'll see you guys in the next video.